Dave Meltzer's name typically gets mentioned a lot when it comes to reporting things and what he hears from backstage and reporting all that stuff. And, it seems like he might have been one of those that got pointed at as to CM Punk calling out for quote unquote journalists and the whole media scrum thing that was going on there. Well, Dave Meltzer was recently with Nick Hausman of Wrestling Inc. And he basically said that he kind of feels guilty of what happened. Here's what he had to say about that. At first, I just thought it was Punk venting, and that's definitely all I thought. Oh, he's venting, and that's fine, whatever. When he talked about Adam Page, had never done anything in the business, it was like, okay, I don't like where this is going, because he was just really insulted the entire company at that point. And then the stuff about the EVPs and everything, the EVPs or whatever, I don't know. He did later on say, I know the guy well enough that I probably should have. As soon as I saw that quote go, dude, it didn't happen. I could just tell you it didn't happen. Nothing else to that happened, in referring to feeding information that the Young Bucks went up to Colt Cabana because CM Punk said that he wanted him released, and eventually went to Ring of Honor instead. Going on and saying, I could tell you it didn't happen. Nothing close to that happened, but I didn't. And I'm not saying that it would have stopped it, because it probably still would have happened, but it's like, I sort of do feel guilty about that aspect of it. So what do you think of Meltzer kind of admitting like, yeah, kind of played a part in what happened with this media scrum?
If he played a part in it, good on him for having the self-awareness to acknowledge that he may have reported something that led to an altercation between them. I don't think if he played a part in this, given the state that CM Punk was in that night, I don't think he would have had any problem just calling out Dave Meltzer in front of everybody. So I don't know if Meltzer's kind of doing a little self-indulging, like just trying to keep himself involved in the storyline. Look, at the end of the day, a lot of times, like we talk about, a lot of times, a lot of rumor and innuendo gets presented as fact because it gets people either clicking or buying or subscribing and all those types of things. So, the one thing Punk said that night is like integrity as far as like being a journalist. Like, who fancies himself a journalist, he said. And the fact that sometimes it's more of the gossip that gets shared is a little unfortunate. They're never going to stop doing it. They know the business they're in. One thing to go out there and say you feel bad about it, but you reported it. You reported it for a reason. It's going to get clicks. It's going to get subscriptions. So why feel bad about it now? So I get you want it. I know you want AEW to succeed because that's a bunch of the guys he roots for there, all that type of stuff. He's close with the Bucks and all that, but those things that get reported have consequences sometimes. You don't think any of those people, I'm sure that if I go and look at whether it's Fightful, any of them, and I'm not even saying it's a bad thing, they're all going to report on the Andrade fight. All of them. Which one of them? They're all going to do it. Why? Because that's going to get subscriptions. It's going to get clicks. It's going to get likes. It's going to get shares. All that type of stuff. They know what they're doing. That's the nature of the work they're in. Can't feel bad about it. If the United States goes and bombs Iraq tomorrow, again, it's going to be on the front page of every newspaper. Why? Because it's going to sell. You could feel bad. You could feel
that they did it. That's the difference.
Well,
because good journalism is about getting it right, not getting it first. And it's not just wrestling. This is just journalism as a whole today.
That's fair.
They're trying to get things out first, not right. The guys you got guys like Wade Keller who barely break news, but when they report something, it's typically right because they check first, second, third, fourth sources. And for the most part, I've even said this, that I think Dave Meltzer as a journalist does a good job and tries to check as many sources as he can. Does he get everything right? No journalist is 100% right with what they're reporting. But if they hear, the same story from like 4 or 5 credible sources of theirs, how can you fault them for reporting it? If they hear a similar story coming from different sources, look at the Andrade Sammy thing. He said he asked like 4 or 5 different people.
Well,
3 of them had the exact same story. 1 of them had close to the same story. And then 1 had a completely different story.
And I guess that's my main point. That's my main takeaway from this whole thing. Like, okay, How genuine can you be? How seriously can I take it when somebody says, I feel bad and I feel responsible for maybe have reporting something that led to an altercation that ended up being a huge thing. You know, your words and everything that gets reported, especially if you're somebody at that high of a stature and you're taken as seriously as he is by some people, then the words that you're reporting hold a certain merit. They carry a certain weight and they're going to have a certain consequence, good or bad. In my mind, if you're going to come out and you're going to say that, you know, how many sources did you check when you reported the last thing? Was it 2? Was it 3? Was it 4? Okay, and how many sources did you check about the whole Andrade fight? But did you still report it? If the answer is yes, then it's kind of like, okay, you feel bad, but did you really learn anything from it? I don't know. I mean, that's my take on it. I don't fault him for reporting anything. If his sources tell him it was supposedly true, then what is he supposed to do? He reported it to the best of his knowledge.
Right.
To feel bad about it, I don't know, man. That's the nature of the work you're in.
Right. And I also think part of what CM Punk was calling out is, you know, who these sources are and saying, oh, the Young Bucks fed him this stuff and he was just going to report it because the Young Bucks said it. I think that was part of where Dave Meltzer was going with this too. And, you know, if it's where Dave Meltzer could have gone to Punk and was like, no, this didn't happen. This is not who my sources are. Then that's another situation too. Like I've said this before, like journalists don't typically reveal their sources. They just have to make sure the sources that they have are credible so that, you know, that's, and this happened before, like in baseball, the 2 guys that pretty much pinned all these guys with steroids, they asked for their sources. They didn't reveal them and they went to jail for it. They rather, go to jail than protect their sources kind of thing. So, or reveal their source, I should say. Yep. So it's kind of the same thing, I think. So I understand it. Dave Meltzer on this situation. So it's a tough situation, I think. And I think some people still grill him regardless, but I kind of see his point on this.